Honestly, to me, technology is just becoming silly good nowadays. The fact that we have incredible cameras inside of our phones that we also carry in our pockets at all times, that is just simply nuts.
And in today's video, I'll be giving you 7 of my absolute best tips in order to take better photos with your smartphone. Now you can use whatever phone that you like, but I'll be using what's currently my favorite one, especially when it comes to photography and filmmaking, the Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV. Alright, so the first tip is extremely simple, but I often overlook it, so I'm guessing that some of you might too, and that is basically just to clean your lens. Chances are that you are just as hooked on the phone as me and you're constantly holding it, so you've probably put some smudge on it. Now you can easily clean it with just your, t-shirt like this and just go over it, or if you are not normal like me, you might be carrying one of these special cleaning cloths, and then it's just simple to just little bit over it and bam! Your lens is gonna be much cleaner and instantly your photos will come out more sharper and nicer looking. So tip number 2 is to utilize all the different lenses on your phone. Most phones nowadays have a few different lenses. For instance, the Xperia has a 60mm ultra wide angle, a 24mm wide angle, and then a true optical zoom from 85 to 125mm. Basically that means that you can get a lot of different types of looks with just your phone. A fun little challenge, or maybe like an exercise, if you will, that I like to do and I think is really fun, is to go and find one spot and then use the different lenses on my phone and see how many photos I can come up with on just that phone with all the different looks. And yeah, personally I think this is very fun, and I encourage you to do that too. Tip number 3, my friends, is to use the grid lines to help you frame your photos and line them up the way you want to do it. Personally, I'm a big fan of grid lines. I like to use them to find the perfect composition, whether I want to have my subject in the middle or more to the side. But I don't get too hooked up on it either, you know. These are just lines to help me, but if I get a little creative, I go with that, you know. The way you open up grid lines on the Xperia is very simple. You navigate to Photo Pro here, and beside you see basic, you click menu. In the menu you have lots of different things you can do, and one of them is grid lines. Basically just click grid lines and on, and voila! Grid lines are now on, and you can use them to help you make your composition perfect. Alright, so is this a good frame? I think this will work. Anyways, the 4th tip that I have is to try and play around with and use raw photos. Raw photos are basically photos that have much more information in them, so you can, they retain a lot of more details within the highlights and shadows and etc, etc. So when you are editing them, you can push the tones around much more than you can with the regular JPEGs. Now I just want to say also one thing, that I don't always shoot in RAW. Like, JPEGs are good, especially the JPEGs on my Xperia is the skin tones are very nice and it's beautiful colors, and also phones have very nice HDR capability. So the dynamics range on phones with the HDR is extremely good. But when I know that I'm doing, a specific photo that is going to be perfect, or I'm lining it up perfectly, then I usually go with RAW. So yeah, just wanted to give you that option too, that RAW photos are incredible and it's fun to edit them, Alright, so the 5th little tip, and something that I sometimes do when I'm taking photos with my smartphone, is to set the exposure and lock it. Now this depends on what type of footage that I'm going for, but especially when I'm doing silhouettes and I want to really protect the highlights, then this is absolutely perfect. And the way you do it is of course different on different phones, but on the Xperia you just open it here, and if you're in basic mode you basically click down here, and then you can take the exposure slider and slide it down, and this way you can control it that way. If you're in Pro mode, then you just use the shutter speed and the ISO to do it. So it's the same if you go in manual. I would use the shutter speed here and control the exposure with the shutter speed and or the ISO. And now I have full control of the exposure, and I can get the type of footage that I want with that. So the sixth little tip is this: if your phone has some sort of pro mode, I highly recommend that you try it out, get to know it and use it, because it allows you to get so much more control over your photos than you would have otherwise. For instance, the Xperia, you have the most insane pro mode ever. It's basically the same like you have on the alpha cameras. You have so much control over your camera here.
Alright, so let's try to do this voiceover in a single recording, my friends. I honestly think this is just incredible to have all of this on control in a smartphone. Here you change the drive mode, you can also change the focus mode if you like. Then down here you have the histogram. It's always nice to have a histogram, and if you like, you can take it on and off by clicking the display button. Then you have the lenses. Change the lenses if you want. And if you find this intimidating, you can always go to the auto mode. And now you have the benefits of the Pro mode, but in auto. And one last thing, the autofocus here is the same as on the alpha cameras, which is known for being, top of the line.
And I highly recommend you to play around with the Pro mode in your phone and use it to your advantage to take better photos with a smartphone, my friends. So the last little tip I have for you, my friends, is something that I personally like extremely much when it comes to taking photos with a smartphone, and that is to use the widest angle, the 60mm on the Xperia, and then turn the phone upside down and get super close to the ground. What this creates is this larger-than-life effect that I really much like, and I'm especially always on the lookout for some nice puddles where I can get super nice reflection, and because the phone is upside down, we can get it so close to the puddles that you get the reflection just becomes incredible. Those of you who follow me, you know that I like this a lot. Alright, so as always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in comments down below. If you could smack that like button for me, it would really help me out. It's been a true pleasure hanging out here with you guys, and hopefully you get a little bit inspired to take photos with your phones, because this is a little device that you have in your pocket at all times, and the cameras on them are incredible. Anyways, catch you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.